Hi everyone, it's me, Serena. Welcome back to Little Bites of HR, a podcast talking about all things people and culture. In each short episode, we will keep it real about all things HR with an added EDI lens.
Welcome back, guys. In today's episode, we will be talking about disciplinaries and the mistakes that can cause us more burn. Now, my first question is, what is actually the point of having a disciplinary process? I'm going to throw that question out there.
I mean, my view is I'm big on performance, right? Like rewarding good performance and being clear around poor or unacceptable standards of performance. And ultimately, I think one of the points of having a disciplinary process is it sets and holds people accountable to the performance expectations in an organization, and they're there for a reason. I mean, look, you have to put an inclusion lens on people's performance. You don't just go at it and say, right, you're not performing according to what that structure is, so there you go straight into disciplinary. That's not what I'm suggesting. But what I am saying is, as a small business owner, as a charitable organization, as any organization with team members, we have to have a level of performance happening. And if that's not happening and you've given the support, and it's really important that you think about the support, then people must be held accountable to those actions. That's my view. I don't know if Serena did this.
I completely agree, and I think there's beauty in ensuring that there's a process in place and that process is fair. Like you said, you need to ensure that the process is fit for purpose. So if I have a disability or if I need some adjustments, that needs to be factored into the process, no matter who's going through it, and we need to ensure that legislation is being followed throughout.
And on that point as well, I know that it can be really difficult to be the bad guy. We want to be like the best manager. We want to be, everybody's best friend. Okay. And it's sometimes a tough action. It's tough to be the person that's, pulling people into disciplinary. But I just want you to imagine what happens when you don't follow on that disciplinary action, or when you decide that you're not going to follow process. Nightmare.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's like that thing where you like nip it in the bud, and when we're saying this, look, let's keep it real. We're not saying the moment that something happens, a situation arises, that must mean the action is disciplinary, right? Disciplinary is a formal action that could result in a formal sanction. And if it results in a formal sanction, there are certain things that you need to be really clear about, right? And follow through with. There are things that are expected if you invite somebody to disciplinary. So we're not saying that every single employee issue will require a disciplinary, but where you do have something that takes place that's severe enough, that goes against company values, that brings the brand into disrepute, that is a breach of confidentiality, that impacts on another team member, all of these things, breaches your DEI expectations or inclusion expectations, then you need to nip it in the bud. Because if you don't nip it in the bud, believe me, how many times have we seen it, ladies?
Yeah.
It escalates. It's something else will happen. It will never stop where it is. It will escalate and it will become a bigger problem. And if it doesn't become a bigger problem, if there's somebody else impacted by it, then in comes a grievance because you didn't handle the problem. And then you've got more issues. So I yeah.
Absolutely. So guys, I guess what are then these common mistakes? Yeah, because we're saying disciplinary, mistakes that are going to cause burn. Give me some examples that people, or we tend to see a lot, that then spiral into a bigger issue and require cleanup.
I feel like what I've seen in my many years of being in HR is managers failing to warn employees of possible disciplinary action. They will maybe not send a letter. If they send a letter, they might not set out the accusations clearly, and they may not provide clear and accurate and all of the information that the employee needs as well. So that's what I've experienced.
Yeah, I'm going to build on that a little bit, Serena, because that failure to warn employees of possible disciplinary action also means, what is the policy that you have in place in your organization that highlights individuals? These are the things that could cause you to be facing a disciplinary action, right? So that failure to warn, in addition to that letter piece, is also the piece that says, well, actually, there's a potential issue if you make these mistakes, if you do these things. I agree with you. Yeah.
Another one I'm going to say as well, and this is one that it's an easy mistake to make, especially when you've got like a really, a massive case with a lot of evidence, is people forgetting to include relevant evidence, or even sometimes evidence that, you might not think is as important, but then you get to the disciplinary meeting and you need to pull that up. You haven't sent it to the employee at that point in time. I'm so sorry, sir. Like, it's too late. You can't bring it in. So make sure you're including every single one of the evidence that you have collated, that you have looked at, that is just a little bit relevant to the case that you're discussing at that point in time.
Yeah, I think sometimes I've seen this before, right, where people think they can have a ta-da moment and just draw an employee in and say, right, we're going to have the meeting, and that's because you did this, and yeah, I just know that you did that. No, you need evidence, and show them the evidence to allow them the same process that they can respond to it. I agree with you. We've seen that. I mean, what haven't we seen?
Yeah, the joys.
And another one as well is, I guess, that lack of objectivity. So especially maybe in smaller organizations where you work closely with people, and you know that this person is a trouble employee. I say that with quotes. You can't see the quotes, but they're there, quotation marks. And not having that objectivity because you want to maybe get someone out, or you just want to make sure that someone is disciplined fairly. I don't think that's not even I don't think the law does not think that that's the best approach to take. You need to be objective. You need to make sure that the person handling that case or being the hero manager is someone that's not going to have a biased view, just so it doesn't come back to bite you in the bum.
And that's harder in small organizations, right? Because sometimes if you're in small organizations, let's say it's your small company or you're the only manager, then that means you're the only person who can hear it, right? It might mean the only manager, you have to do the investigation meeting and the disciplinary meeting. And then if the employee decides, well, I want to appeal, because guess what? They've got the right to appeal to the decision. If the employee decides, I want to appeal against it, I don't believe it was right, you hear all of it. So you have to be objective in it, because if you're hearing the investigation, the holding disciplinary, making the decision on the outcome, and then holding the appeal, how can you ensure that you're going in there honestly, openly, objectively to hear each stage as if you haven't heard the previous stage? You can't rely upon all of that back information, can you? Yeah, I agree with that.
Absolutely. And I think also sometimes there may be a failure to provide proper notice. Like managers will just call someone in on the same day and be like, oh, by the way, I'm going to discipline you today, and that meeting's going to happen at 9:30 a.m. Managers should really refrain from doing that. We need to make sure we are giving employees adequate notice, as well as the right to be accompanied to the meeting. What tips for fair disciplinary would you guys recommend?
Number one for me is follow your policy, because people will catch you out and say that you responded to me in 9 days when your policy says it's 7 days. Let's just avoid that. Make sure that you have a clear policy. And if you're not sure as to what goes into this, you can check out ACAS, because they've got quite good guidelines on there. Or you can come to us as well. That's a shameless plug. But yeah, absolutely follow your policy.
Yeah. And if you look, don't be held prisoner to the policy, right? Ultimately, sometimes there could be further investigations that need to be done, and our policy might turn around and say, we will get back to you within 7 days or respond within 7 days. But if following the policy and responding in 7 days means that you don't do enough effective investigation, or don't take more witness statements, or the employee comes up with something in the disciplinary hearing that requires further thought, mitigating circs, then go outside of it. Just make sure you keep them informed. Like, don't do it and then stay silent and tell them to keep waiting. Tell them that it's taking longer and the reasons why. I agree. Yeah.
And I think that point links really well into not being lazy, where because you want to stick to the 7 days or however, sometimes it's just a long process doing the disciplinary investigation, and you want to cut corners. My God, please don't do it. Make sure that it's thorough, make sure that it's robust, and you've, I guess, kind of explored all the avenues that you needed to make sure that it's a fair process, because they will hold you to that if you need to go to tribunal.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I also, I'd want to add to that, right, that disciplinary is really difficult for the employee, and disciplinary is also really difficult for the employer a lot of the times, right? And so let's not forget that whilst you might be having conversations about something that's taken place that's an issue, it doesn't mean that that person should be handled or treated in an inappropriate way. individuals, employees who are facing disciplinary action should still be handled and supported, given support person, given well-being. If you've got EAP, given EAP support. You don't go into that process being mean, is what I'm saying, right? You're holding the power anyway. And what am I doing? I'm bringing inclusion into this because it's important. If you're the disciplining manager, you're holding the power in that decision making anyway, based on your reasonable belief against the allegation. So let's not go into this mean. You don't have to be a meanie through the process, or have a sour face throughout. Still support the employee, making clear what it is, giving breaks within the conversation. And to Serena's last point, adequate time to prepare, at least no less than 48 hours. And keep in mind that they have the right to be accompanied. They can bring a trade union member in there with them, and they can bring another member of the team in with them. So give them that right and support to be able to give their case too.
Right, guys, let's do a quick wrap up. We want you to understand the importance of having a disciplinary process. Don't forget about the common mistakes we've shared that can land you in hot water. And finally, take on board the tips that we have shared.
As always, thanks for listening. We hope you gained valuable information today. We can be found on all social media platforms with our handle, A Little Bit of HR. If you still need further help or want to find out more, then get in touch for a free 20-minute consultation discussion by booking online at www.alittlebitofhr.com. Bye.